Well, good evening and welcome to Terrace Talk. Donald Barry here with you until 8 o'clock this evening as we bring you some lively chat and opinions on some of the weekend's action here in Kerry, of course, featuring some of our teams in action over the weekend. Now, it's not just the opinions of our guests that count, your opinion counts as well, so give Ivan a buzz there on 083 300 3300. You can text him or WhatsApp on that, or if you want to ring the old line, it's 066 71 23666, and I say the whole of Kerry knows that number off by heart now. Now, what a weekend of action it was. Our hurlers, of course, their great run came to an end after Wexford proved just maybe a step too far, and we'll chat about that very, very shortly. Now, our Kerry Miners, now they rebounded well, didn't they, from a big defeat to Cork, to defeat Ulster champions Tyrone and book a place in the All-Ireland semi-final. They certainly showed an awful lot of fight, and I suppose they really dug well to win that game. Our Kerry Masters, believe it or not, they're still flying. They were in action, of course, in Fossa against Cork. They produced the goods again late as they continued their unbeaten run of 3 games. A certain A.O. Mahoney from Rathmore was back in the green and gold, and certainly was flying as well. But obviously, he was never going to turn down a Cork game, I'll say. Now, congratulations to our ladies footballers. They opened their Tadhg Coakley Ladies Football Championship with a win over Connacht champions Galway. What an exciting game that was. It was on TV, of course, and well deserved. All the way through, they had us on tender hooks at the end, of course, with 2 late goals. But what a performance by Caught Lynch at centre field. And, of course, once again, Louise Mary Hurtig, 8 points. And did you catch that goal by Niamh Carmody? What a goal. I reckon already it's goal of the year, I'd say. It was that good, really, really good. And, of course, the result of the weekend surely was that fantastic win by our Kerry Camogie team, who avenged Dublin in the All-Ireland final loss of a few years ago. And they've already, believe it or not, booked their Glen Dimplex Intermediate Camogie quarter-final spot after 3 wins. 3 wins in a row. We're just talking to James off air here. We don't know when the last time that happened, but we'll be finding out because we've 2 of their players in after 6:20 to chat about that game and a little bit more as well. And at 7 o'clock this evening, it's our final Women in Sports segment, and we catch up with the great Gillian O Sullivan, of course. She's under the spotlight this evening. And then just after 7:30, we're going to be talking to Sean O'Sullivan, one of the men behind the Dylan Crowley tournament out there in Gneeveguilla, and a big hello to all those out there this evening. And sure, you never know, we might have a little bit more after that. I think we're lining up a book, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Kindy Cup as well. Those boys are in action at the moment, starting there at 6 o'clock, and we hopefully get a result in there, and hopefully it's a good one. Also happening this evening, of course, is the Acorn Life Under 21 Football Championship draw that takes place, and sure, you never know, we'll keep an eye out on that as well. Now, the amazing run of the Kerry senior hurlers came to an end on Saturday at Austin Stack Park. After Wexford, I suppose, just proved a little bit too much for the team who spent the whole year defying the odds. Now, however, on this occasion, it seemed to be the experience, the physique, the pace of the Leinster side just showed that there was a big gap between Tier 1 and Tier 2. Still, there was plenty to look back on and admire from Stephen Malumpy's men. And joining us to review that game and look ahead of what could be in store for these players is our hurling panellists. James McCarthy's in studio, and Rishtard is on the old dog and bone there, hopefully, up there in North Kerry. Rishtard, we'll start with yourself first. We said last week that it was going to be a big step, and we wondered would a week turnaround be enough for Kerry to cope. But I think it's fairly safe to say for most of that game we battled and battled and battled, but in the end that little bit of extra class and that little bit of ability to grab those goals probably put a somewhat unfair reflection on the scoreboard despite the efforts of the team.
I would say it was an unfair reflection as well. I suppose, as I said before, if we were to be told that if someone were to say, for example, that we were going to be in that position at the end of the year, down 12 players, 12, I suppose, stalwarts, and that we were going to go that far, you'd say, Jabers, that's going to be a big ask. And many people were saying that Kerry would even struggle in the Joe McDonagh, So it was a great performance all year. Now, it was clear on Saturday that Wexford, their objective obviously was to put Kerry to bed as quickly as possible and get the goals. I mean, Antrim did that, and we bounced back. But fair play to Kerry. They fought well in the first half. Wexford did get the scores. They went ahead, built up a big lead, but Kerry fought back very well, mostly from the frees of Tadhg. And then the second half, I suppose, the fact that we played a hard game the previous week really took its toll. I think obviously losing Shane Conway didn't help. Tadhg going off with the unfortunate sending off as well. And especially when we were down to 14, I thought, Wexford had the break, they had the energy, and the Rebs run at us, and we ran out of steam. So I suppose, the goals were scored towards the end. So it was not just a case, I suppose, of 2 different levels, which we have to accept. But I think it was also Kerry probably running out of steam because, as I said, they had a damn hard game the previous week.
Absolutely. James, I suppose last time Kerry played Wexford a few years ago, the occasion seemed to get to them very early and the game was over, and it didn't paint a probably true reflection or a bad picture maybe because there was a massive crowd. This game was a bit different. I mean, Kerry settled in good. I mean, they kept things as tight as they possibly could for as long as they could. In the end, was it just a Wexford bench with all the guys coming on looking for their spots that kind of moved them from third gear to fourth gear and they finished really strong?
They did. In fairness, you couldn't compare the two benches. Look at Kerry's bench, raw, green, young lads, bar Morris O'Connor, and Wexford did physically overpower us for the whole second half. Even before those subs came on, I think they were physically way bigger than our lads. And the pace they play the game, different pace. Even when the game was in the melting pot early on, we'll call it, Darry Egan, you could hear him get the ball to ground. That was his word from the sideline, get the ball to ground. In the air, Podge win a few puck-outs, and we were getting a bit of joy off it maybe, but all he's kept saying to his players, get it to ground. They were quicker on the ground, quicker to move the ball, and then, in fairness to our lads, we gave out probably last week about being exposed at the back, but look, they tried to keep it tight, they did that. Maybe you have to kind of take away from your forwards in a little bit by doing that, and maybe that's what happened to us a little bit. Like Jordan Conway was on. Jordan was electric and very good. I thought he was still, even under that much pressure, with Wexford backs were excellent. I thought Damien Ricketts in the back for Wexford is a super player. Then they had Conor McDonald and Lee Chin as targets above, and Rory O'Connor, serious talent up there. They will give Clare a serious game as they move on, but there was a big difference. There was a huge difference in teams, the levels we're at and the levels they're at. They have David Fitz's imprint is still there. Darry Egan is tweaking it for Wexford, but you can see they're a serious animal. They're a serious animal.
And of course, this is a Wexford team that, maybe 2 years ago people were saying they were ready for the next step up. Now they're kind of, we'll say that they're a good step ahead of Joe McDonough candidates, I suppose. Is there a lot in this Wexford team still that, that there's a bit of a run in them?
I think there is. I think, they beat Kilkenny, yes. People say, that was Kilkenny, whatever. But Kilkenny then came on to Galway and beat Galway in Croke Park. I think Croke Park is set up for Wexford. The way they play, the way they make the pitch absolutely huge. We tried to play short the last time. It's like Limerick do the same thing. They let you play short, but into a channel. You know yourself down in Declan, you're moving cattle, you're moving sheep. Give them into a narrow channel there, and we'll nail them from there then. Wexford did the same thing. We'll allow you to bring the ball out, but only down the centre. And a couple of times we came out with the ball, played it short, we got absolutely swallowed up. But Wexford, when they're playing it, they had a guy right, I was up in the terrace, and he was virtually in the stand. He was right to the sideline. And then on the same the other side, when they were doing their short puck outs, it was right to the line. Then it was down the line to maybe Conor McDonald, who was making a run, or Leachin on the far side. Their ball movement was superb. I know maybe it's the level they're playing at, but it just shows you, if you go short, you cannot give it away. And teams going to, like Limerick, there's a Cork. It's not just Kerry falling into a Wexford trap. Limerick, there's a Cork, and absolutely ate them alive. They will let you go so far and bang, they'll come in and kill you.
Yeah. Richard, we spoke about the need for a bigger local support on the day. They turned up in big numbers, certainly did. The half-time game as well between the under-9s, Rathmore, over there in East Kerry, they brought their little army with them in St. Brendan's. It was great to see that, and we said that this was going to turn it into an occasion. Off the field, it did feel like an occasion afterwards. I mean, the amount of people on looking for autographs and I suppose selfies and the whole lot. It's the other side that we're very good at, and it's something that brings more people together.
Yeah, and it was great to see the likes of Lee Chin out there. Lee Chin asked me for a photograph. He was looking for James McCarthy, couldn't find him, so he just settled with me.
James got his jersey, I think.
But yeah, it was fantastic, and there was a great sense of occasion, and the beauty about it was that there were Kerry supporters there from the likes of Cahersiveen, people from Waterville. They were there because they were very impressed. A lot of people were very impressed with the previous week against Antrim. As I said maybe last week, that often there'd be comments on the Kerry GAA Facebook page. It might be 10, 12 comments. There was 80 and 90 comments from people from South Kerry and East Kerry and West Kerry as well. So people sat up and took notice, I suppose, of the Kerry Hurlers. And I think, in all fairness, they came along last Saturday and they got their backsides into Austin Stack Park, as we said they had to do last Monday evening. Mm-hmm. And they got in there, and there were people from all different parts. I mean, I was chatting to people from, Killarney and different parts of Kerry that wouldn't be hurling strongholds. They wouldn't have a hurling history at all. But it was fantastic, and the roar at half-time was great. But the boys, this team, I mean, as James said there, the bench was very, very inexperienced. And as I said, if we were to be told at the beginning of the year like the Kerry team would get this far, people weren't giving them much hope. But it just shows what Murphy has done. He has brought them on. If you want to play with Kerry, he doesn't care where you're from. If you want to commit, he'll take you. And certainly it was this year the Kerry hurlers give us a great early.
Yeah, absolutely. James, I suppose at the end of every campaign we look back, I suppose, and you look at the games that were won and lost, and you'll say tactics won this, or on that day or discipline cost us all that. Who were the heroes of this campaign? I mean, certainly some players stood out. I suppose while they all contributed, you look back and you'll say, well, look, these 3 or 4 were a touch up there. Some young players really shone out for the first time, names that we possibly would have known but would never have said they're leaders in the team. Who were the big heroes and the leaders from this campaign?
I suppose the positives you take in this year, you take young Colin Walsh, and like Jordan Conway back from injury, back playing at a level where he's always been. He's a superb player. Podge Biles' form. Mikey still being able to do it now. I know I might be mentioning the older lads, but still able to do it at his age. Still contributing a huge amount to the team. Fionn Mackesy, named on the college football team and the college hurling team of the year. What a warrior.
And he was named the hurling team of the week again this week.
Superb warrior.
In huge company.
You can see himself and Lee Chin had a great battle in the corner. Lee Chin Lee Chin usually rambles around. He kind of goes out and does what he wants to do. He couldn't get much room latitude off Fionn Mackesy, and Fionn got a good few pucks as well himself, and even got a score himself. So there's a lot to work on. But with Kerry, as I know, how do you maintain that level? Mm-hmm. How do you actually, and it's not maintain it. Firstly, we need defenders. We need backup in defence badly need backup in defence. Like we struggled there all year. You cannot give away 330. We give against Antrim was 425, 423, something like that. Huge scores. Mm-hmm. We got to find a balance where we're really good in attack, but we have to be more solid at the back. Do we need something more central? Maybe if you're non-central, do you need someone dominating there like Wexford, Damien Rick? We tried to get on the centre. He absolutely snuffed out everything. He was superb.
Yeah. He closed every door. Really,
every door. It didn't matter what way it came to him. He was absolutely brilliant. And he's not a huge guy, but he's reading the game, and he's hurling, and his stick work was absolutely superb. And the way they played, you could take a lesson from the way they played. Like they would consider themselves maybe slightly weaker than Kilkenny and Galway and Leinster, and they set up that way. They set up right. We're going to be solid from here, and we're going to work forward and take every chance we get going forward. And they started that a few years ago at Davy, but now they've actually moved on to another level. Their hurling's improved and their lads have improved, and you can see, they don't have to play that defensive mode anymore. They can attack you now. There's a lot more about them now. Like one time we say, sweeper system, and they were giving out about Davies sweeper and this is that. But now they're a different animal. Yeah. You could see the ball was hitting the halfback from the goalie, and it was 90 yards cross field to a runner who was coming maybe the opposite halfback even at times. He was bombing up the field, and Conor McDonald was just, what a target. And Lee Chin, what a target. They're two brilliant targets. They're going to give Clare some game, and I'm looking forward to actually the weekend, see how they will do. But I suppose if we look at Kerry, see where they are, we look at what Antrim did to Cork. Where are we? Like you saw, they got within 6 points of Cork. So it's hard to judge Kerry on last Saturday, because I thought they were just at the end of the year, I thought.
And in fairness to them, I suppose, look, I suppose the car runs out of diesel somewhere in a campaign. I mean, like that game against Antrim would have taken an awful lot out of the tank. Yeah. And then, it's a 7-day turnaround. It's even less, actually. And it's difficult to get back up for it. James, the Senior Hurling Championship, it's on the horizon. Is there more players out there? Or is there players that Stephen Mallumpy will look at and say, right, with a bit of work, I have a place for you. With a bit of work,
I think so.
You might be the defender I need, with a bit of time and commitment. Because if you think about this year, he's turned players very rapidly into very competitive players.
Like, I think, it's like a diamond in the rough. Even a player like I was myself, maybe for the club I wasn't fantastic. When I came into a Kerry setup, it was like you'd flick a switch. Some fellas can just adapt to county scenes so different to their club scene. And I saw it as well. It was guys from, we won't say lesser clubs, but clubs that maybe not successful in County Championship. I'll take Aidan Healy for one example. Aidan Healy was a brilliant fullback for Kerry. And with his club, he never had very, very success with Aberdeen, but what a warrior to have with you. I think, it's not so much young players. I think we will have to go back in to find the players that maybe have left the panel, get a few of those back. There's guys I think of, like even Jason Diggins. That's one guy I look at. Ball player. He has his superb delivery from the back. You could see last week, again, what Wexford do, you need to have superb ball coming out of your backs. It's got to be delivered, and it's 70 or 80 yards. He's one player I would look at. Where you could fit him in, don't know, maybe centre, maybe full, but I think there's players like that you could look at. I don't know, is there many young players around at the minute? I think we have him, what we have, under 20s maybe, is kind of, there's a couple of guys knocking around there, but maybe they just need another 2-3 years playing in the championship at our own county level first, then get on to Kerry. But then again, maybe Stephen Malumphey can get a hold of these guys and say, look, come in, I'll develop you physically, hurling wise, can't do many harm.
Yeah. Rishtard, the Stephen Malumphey effect, we'll call it, little did we think, I suppose, in such a short space of time that he'd have been as successful. I suppose he was coming in with a team that kind of got to the line a couple of times. We seem to be a little bit closer to the line now, still didn't cross it. Is this just the start of the journey, or is there a fear out there, and it was said to me today, that a management set up this good, other counties will be looking for him fairly quickly? You know, where does Stephen Malumphey go? Has he brought his CV up to a level where his own county back in Waterford might say, listen, you know, he's being ready-made, he's competing away, maybe his thing? Or where does he go from here? Or is this a long-term project?
Oh, I think that eventually he would like to probably assume the reins at Waterford. I mean, that's you know, and he has good men around him, and of course, I'm sure he wouldn't he love to do that. But I think he has committed, and as James was there about lads improving, you see what Stephen does is he brings players who are just, you know, good hurlers, and he makes them very good. I suppose a couple of players you can look at. Let's look at Owen Ross. Owen Ross was coming on there last year, but Owen Ross has turned into a fine hurler now, absolutely brilliant since he joined the Kerry setup, you know. And there are other lads out there. I mean, like Jason Diggins, the lads who couldn't commit this year. I mean, John Buckley. Another underrated player I always found a defender was James O'Connor from Aberdeen. Other lads like that, they are out there. And the thing is, you see, is that if Malumphey brings them in, he will, if they're good hurlers, he will make them very, very good hurlers, because he will do the physical work with them and he will bring them up to that level. So I think, you know, that the players that we have out there in the club, many good players, I'd say if they go in with Malumphey, that you know, he'll raise the bar again and he'll turn them into fine hurlers. So we do have the hurlers out there, and they have the potential. Mm-hmm.
It's great, isn't it, to be here on Terrace Talk talking hurling week after week at the highest level. I mean, we certainly have come an awful long way. I mean, I suppose many people out there thought it was the preserve of football week in, week out, but it's certainly where we've come from. We'll park it there. One final question to both of you. The Liam McCarthy, it's up for grabs. There's 6 teams left. James, who are you putting your 5 pence on?
Like, Limerick, of course, right, but don't write off Kilkenny. Just for matching Limerick physically alone. Just physically alone. They're the only team to beat them in the last 4 years. So I'll put 10 pence on Kilkenny and the pound on Limerick.
He's taking no Tim. Rishtard, yourself?
Limerick. I think whatever about the hurling ability of Kilkenny, I don't think, a bit like Cork last year, I don't think any team can match the physicality of Limerick. They have the hurling, they have the physicality. They're the real deal. And
I want to separate both of you because you're working with me, Limerick. Rishtard first, who's going to win the Neelis Flynn this year?
Oh, that's a tricky one, because there are so many players, you know, who have gone away. It's a tricky one. I like from the league, and I'm going to go from the league. I like Croatia. I think they could be the shock of the championship. But it's a difficult one to call until we see them, because there are so many players gone away. All teams will be decimated, plus the lads coming back from the county setup. So it's very, very difficult to judge it. But I've been very impressed, believe it, with Croatia this year, Arfert as well.
Okay.
And Ballyduff obviously with the Boyles back, but it's a difficult one to call.
Yeah, his all names now. You were going so well, Rishtard. Outside of
you knew I was involved in politics, wouldn't you?
Yeah, outside of Kilmiley, James, who can win it?
Right. I'm going to be a Kilmiley man first.
Right.
Kilmiley winners. Okay. If not, Ballyduff. That's the two. They are really the two standout teams at the minute. I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard gig now to get back in. The only thing I was thinking with stick with Kilmiley is we were training up to February as a club. A lot of other clubs have had their Kerry players away from them for a long time. They'll find it hard to integrate again. Ballyduff maybe not so much. They will always just knit together well. So I think Kilmiley, Ballyduff, top 2.
Fair play. So the top two of the league and the top two of everything forever, Ballyduff and Crotta as an outside bet as well. Guys, listen, thanks very much. As I said, it's been a great pleasure. We'll get you on again once we get to the championship season or the latter end of it, definitely. It certainly was great fun, and look, very well done to all the Kerry hurlers out there, Steve Malumpi as well and the whole lot, and of course that man from Ballyhike who's helping him out there in the background as well, Brendan Sullivan. Of course he was part of the team that beat Waterford back in 93, so I'd say every now and again they probably have a bit of an awkward old chat about that one. But listen guys, thanks very much. After a break we'll be talking Camogie.
Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry, brought to you in association with Meadowlands Hotel Tralee. Family run and supporting local. Meadowlandshotel.com.
Now you're listening to Terrace Talk. Donald Barry here with you till 8 o'clock. James McCarthy is going to sit in the next segment. He knows a small bit about Camogie as well. Now, what was the best team performance of the weekend from a Kerry team? Well, the Kerry ladies were up there. Certainly they defied the odds, defeating Galway in their opening Tadhg Coakley Championship game. Fantastic game that was. The Kerry Miners, of course, as we said earlier, they rebounded well after that defeat to Cork. Got back, dug out real hard there in victory there over Tyrone. And even the Kerry Masters, of course, defeating Cork. And they defeat Cork. But was there no game as dramatic as the game that took place on Saturday evening in Lixnaw, when the Kerry Camogie team hung on to defeat Dublin by a single point to win their third Glendimplex Intermediate Championship game in a row, to all but secure, I suppose, their place in the All-Ireland quarterfinals with 2 games left to go. Now, delighted to have on the line 2 stars from that battle, Michelle Costello and Patrice Diggin. Michelle, I had Rachel McCarthy and Sarah Murphy on the a couple of weeks ago for the championship start, and they both felt that there was a great atmosphere in the camp, and they said they would be very competitive and they'd be hopeful that they could win possibly a game or 2 games. You certainly didn't think that you're going to win 3 games, or did you certainly know you're going to win all 3 games, Michelle?
No, Donald, we were just taking, I suppose, game by game. Our group is quite tough. So when we got our group, I suppose we were just looking at them, and I suppose we have played against Laois already this year in the Division 2 of the league. So we overcame them in March. But again, that was a very tough battle. So we knew our first game against them was going to be hard. Second game was against Carlow, and we've played them before. Again, they're tough. This time, I think it was last year, we played them in the championship, and that went to extra time. And then look, with last week's game against Dublin, again, we didn't know much about them. We haven't actually played against Dublin since, I think it was 2018 in the first All-Ireland final, where we lost to them above in Croke Park, our first time in Croke Park. So, look, we didn't know much about Dublin going in, but it was absolutely fantastic to get that win over them on Saturday.
Yeah, it's interesting, Michelle, because I suppose the last time you played them was 2018. I suppose psychologically you'd love to have played them probably the week after or the 2 weeks after to get back at them. You had to wait a while. So how important was it maybe psychologically to say, listen, we've waited 4 years, we've beaten Dublin, it's a competitive game. I think you had maybe 5 or 6 of that All-Ireland team starting the last day, maybe another 3 or 4 subs from 2018 on that team as well. So it's a team and a panel that's very much in transition, and you're remaining hugely competitive while you're in transition. That must be a fantastic feeling.
Yeah, it's great. I suppose our numbers, look at the start of the year, we were missing our Clonmars girls, I suppose, for the league, for the start of it, because we were still doing club. And then for the championship, we have injuries. We have girls doing their leave and cert. So our panel is small. So I suppose, in fairness to ourselves and management, we are doing a great job, I suppose, at maintaining the quality at the moment. And I suppose, look, we take it game by game, and we're just nothing. I suppose we feel when we go into games, sure, give it our all and see what comes out the other side. There's no point going in half-hearted. Yeah. This is where we want to be. We want to be in the intermediate and keep driving on, and there's no point just saying that we want to be there and just remain there. We want to see how far we can get on in this competition.
It's a super attitude, Michelle. Now, one player, of course, who had a big part to play in Saturday's game was Patrice, and delighted to have her on the line as well. Patrice, is there ever a game that you just go out and have a normal game? I mean, Saturday was another big Patrice Diggin, big freeze. You even threw in an old penalty save there as well. It was a real all-action kind of display. Are they the games that you really enjoy? I mean, where every play is hugely important and everything is competitive for the whole hour or even beyond it? Are these ones that you say, yeah, I'm absolutely delighted to have won it, but certainly to have played in it?
Yeah, look, I suppose, Donald, you're training all year for championship. You're playing the league. You're going through the hard slog in the winter, and I suppose you're the days you want to be playing in are the fine days when it comes to championship. So I suppose we're enjoying it at the moment and enjoying getting into training. Even since we started, I think the buzz of training has picked up, because when you're winning games, I suppose there's automatically a bigger buzz. So you're enjoying going to training, and I suppose when you're winning matches, you're nearly looking forward to the next match then again. So I suppose we're looking forward again to Saturday.
Yeah. Come here. How some of your players have been on the road a while now. I mean, I remember, since Kerry Camogie got back on the road again, flying the flag at junior, and off he went. And you've all been kind of part of that journey, or certainly an awful lot of you. How do you maintain that freshness and that appetite? I mean, I suppose it's a sport that is played by a small enough group of players. It doesn't always get the media attention that it deserves. If you win, you're the headlines. If you lose, you're somewhere in the middle of a back page, or maybe there's something else. So how do you maintain that freshness, that appetite, that wanting to put the helmet on and carry out the hurley with you and get back onto it? How is that maintained, Patrice?
I suppose, first of all, look, we're a unique group of players in that we're all from one pocket. We're all so close. You're playing with your best friends every day. You go out, you're going to training with your best friends. No matter what part of Camogie it is, they're there. So, and I think even outside of Camogie, when you're socialising, they're near your group of friends as well. And I suppose then as well, look, you have to take your breaks, and they come I suppose at the start of the year, it's an exceptional year for us, the fact that we had such a long hard slog with Claremorris, and then we had to face into the league again. But in fairness to Ian, he gave us 2 or 3 weeks off there where he didn't even want us at the pitch. So I suppose even the minute then that we were probably out of it a week, we were looking to go back again. And I suppose, look, it's kind of, you're nearly lost without it when you're not playing it. So I suppose that's probably what drives you. And look, when you get a good start to the championship, then I suppose that makes a difference as well. You're more enticed to drive on. Whereas I suppose if we had 3 games played and 3 losses, it'd be a different story. You'd be trying to motivate yourself to go out. But when you're winning, I suppose everything comes a bit easier. Yeah,
continuing that point there, Michelle, from Patrice, I suppose, you've 3-1, you look at the position where the next game can't come fast enough and you want to play it. Is there a lot more, do you feel, in the tank? I mean, you've 2 more games, you've knockout stages. At this stage, do you try and maintain that level and win? Or is there a situation now where you might kind of say, well, listen, more players might need a bit more game time before we get to the series kind of knockout level? How do those couple of games be approached from here on in? Or is that Ian Brick's job?
maybe to keep us going. No, well, we've Westmeath now on Saturday, and that's our 4th game in a row. But like Patrice said, I suppose the fact that we've 3 wins behind us, the atmosphere and buzz of training is good. We did a recovery session on Sunday morning. I think girls, at this stage know what works best for themselves. So we'll prep going in this week. We've gym now this evening, training during the week. I'm sure, hopefully, Ian will take it light on us this week. But with the 3 wins, motivation is good and it's high. And I suppose we want to keep going and keep fighting and see what we can put up against Westmeath. Look, they will be a strong team on Saturday. Westmeath won the Intermediate Championship back in 2019 when we won the Premier Junior. So they have actually played a full year at senior level, and then they've dropped back down. So look, they will be tough, but every game before that has been tough. So with 3 wins, I think we're kind of at a high. So we just need to keep going now.
Speaking of all things tough and Kilmiley, James McCarthy is here in studio. James, do you want to ask Michelle a question?
Yeah, I suppose Michelle and Patrice, I look at it myself now as I'm a fully signed up member of the Camogie community as well. As a father to 4 daughters, it was always going to be my route. But I suppose, do you see what Ian has done the last 2 or 3 years, the style of play, and the girls that came in this year? I'll name now Ellen and Ciara Sullivan, and maybe Amy last year and Kiva. Do you find yourself now there's a different style of play? I've looked at it now a good few years watching yourselves. I think the style of play has developed totally. You're on a different level now, I think, the way you're playing. Do you find that yourselves?
Patrice, I suppose. I didn't think James McCarthy was going to ask such an interesting question.
Sorry, no, let's.
I suppose, look, Ian has probably done a lot of work with us in the last 2 or 3 years, especially this year, I think, kind of getting our game plan right. And setting us up for matches, like even as late as last week at training, he was setting us up how he wanted us to play, telling us how he wanted us to play. So I suppose he's kind of building that into the team now, where we're not going out hitting ball, for the sake of hitting it. We're actually we have a strategy now where whatever Ian says, we're trying to implement that into games. So I think ourselves we're probably a bit more comfortable on the ball than we would have been years ago, besides just hitting it up the field. And I suppose the girls have just been a part of that growing nature in it then as well. And I suppose it's good that they're built into it.
Michelle, there's a lot of younger players around in the team. Are you amazed at their quickness to adapt to the speed of the senior game and get up fairly quickly? I mean, they're nearly on a par now, and Patrice was saying there now that even the training has changed, because you're at a level where I suppose maybe you understand things a bit quicker or more, or you're at a more competitive level, or maybe all the players on the same level. Are you amazed at the younger players, how they come back in fairly up to the speed of the game at the moment, Michelle?
I think that's all down to the work that's been put in at underage. I suppose, look, the Camogie and Kerry it's still quite new, but all the clubs that are setting up and that they're driving on, and they're winning Féile and representing Kerry with Féile, all the work that's been done underage, I suppose, is prepping them for that. So when they come up then to county level, I feel they do slot in, and like James mentioned, Gillian O Sullivan in with us. She's not eligible to play this year, but there's girls in training, I suppose, and they see, I suppose, what's expected of them, and they bring, I suppose, a freshness as well to the panel, and I suppose there's a bit of fight there then as well for spaces and things like that. But I do feel that's all down to underage, and I suppose their willingness then to come in senior level, and they're just easy to adapt, I suppose, to what's going on in the setup that Ian then brings to training. Yeah,
absolutely. James, I suppose Camogie is a funny game. It needs more and more people playing it to kind of feed back into that kind of senior and elite players. You're with the Kerry under
the 16 Camogie.
16 Camogie. What's that like? You're training them. I mean, are you getting players from all over Kerry? I mean, the game has developed. I mean, there was a time it was just, I suppose, simply North Kerry. I mean, they're back out in Slieve Lucre, they're over in Killarney. I mean, it's great to see all these clubs, and I presume every club are going to feed somebody sooner or later into a thing. How impressed are you with the quality of players coming in?
You can see yourself, it's consistency of management as well, consistency within the county board, consistency with a plan. Because I see that I've been with the under 16s now for the last 2 years. Before that I was 2 or 3 years with the minors. I can see what's going on. I knew this show coming in to our under 16s where we were, because I had all these girls last year, and I had a panel probably maybe 30 players. I had 15 under 15s, so I knew exactly what I had coming in this year. And we've had 6 weeks of developments where we played Galway, Limerick, Clare. They're under 16, maybe they're B teams, maybe they're C teams at times, maybe Galway, but we became really comfortable in the end. At the start, find it tough. By the end of those development blitzes, we were beating the Galways, we were beating Limerick, we were beating Clare B, Clare C, all those teams we had moved on an awful lot. And the players I can see, there's girls now from Rathmore, girls from Kinmare, Killarney are now the strongest team at under 16. So that'll tell you alone the development stages they're at. And there's some super players in there. Looking at this year, I'll have 5 under 15s probably on the under 16 team for this year. So going forward, that's excellent. And even I know there's girls within my own club, Killard, I know they want to play senior Camogie. I know that for a fact, and I've kind of driven it into my own daughter as well. She wants to play. They are that type of player. They can see the road. There's a clear road there now. They can see where Kerry are. Kerry performing like Michelle and Patrice at senior level. They want to get in there. And I think now with Kerry, with the lads talking about the younger players coming in, they have a nice balance now. They have a lovely balance now where Patrice and Michelle, they're at the stage, right? They're there, they're established. They can see what's coming in with them. Like Amy Sullivan's on her second year, Kiva's on her second or third year. Those players, they really come into their own now as well. Like Andrew's mentioned a couple of names, because Eleanor Dunn, who's another player I mentioned as well, because I've been with all these girls since they were teeny tots, and I know that because my daughter's a similar age, and we travel up along. We've won Féiles, we played with counties, and we've had huge games. And I knew, and the girls probably knew themselves, looking at them, yeah, these are players. These are the girls we want. You could have handpicked them 2 or 3 years and I said, right, you could have named 5 players, right, they're ones to look out for. They're ones that are going to make us better and carry us to the next level. And you can see the 3 wins. You can see where they are. And this is down to Patrice and Michelle. their longevity and they're veterans like myself. That's not insulting, girls, but that's what they are, and I know exactly you need them. You need those players, and you need the younger players have to look at Michelle and Patrice and say, right, that's what I want to be. I want to be an established inter-county camogie player and get comfortable playing intermediate and have no problem with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Guy, Patrice, I suppose, look, you've competed at the best level nearly everywhere. I mean, you held those memorable days, I suppose, with the Ashbourne, the whole lot, and look, in fairness to you, you've been a flag bearer among many others as well with Clonmaris and the whole lot. What's the Kerry dream for you? What is the end of the line or the end of the tunnel for you in that dream? Or is there a dream, or is it just the next game? But sooner or later, Patrice Diggin will say, yeah, I want to have something with this group of girls because, they're friends, it's community, it's a group that we've been on a long road. What's the journey's end here, Patrice?
I suppose, look, it's a hard question. I suppose every year we go out, look, we're looking to get a step further. And when the championship starts, you're only taking it game by game. But I suppose, look, last year we got to an All-Ireland quarter-final, and thankfully we're back in that position again, because I think in our minds it would have been a step backwards if we didn't even get to the quarter-final this year. So I suppose that was step one, was to get back there. But I suppose the next step now is to get beyond the quarter-final, because then you're shown that you're actually progressing within the competition. And I suppose, like, the dream obviously is to get back up to Croke Park Sunday with the team as an intermediate team. And I think we played Cork there in Páirc Uí Chaoimh a couple of weeks ago in the Munster final, and it's a game we probably could have won, and that probably shows that there is enough talent there in Kerry Camogie, if just to get it right on the day, that it is actually possible to get back there. So look, like I said, we'll take it every game as it comes, but I suppose even to just get beyond the quarter-final this year will be progress, and I suppose anything beyond that then is you're in
dream territory.
It's even better. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, look,
territory, yeah.
Patrice and Michelle and my new best camogie pal, James McCarthy. God, when he said he has 4 daughters playing, I can't imagine what they're going to be like. But guys, thanks very much, and look, thanks for Ian as well for giving us access to players. I think it's hugely important as well that we get a chance to speak to players and they talk about their journey along the way. Look, certainly I've been watching camogie. I won't say I jumped on the bandwagon, but I'm certainly holding the rails maybe a small bit.
And you played it with
and
us.
actually I have played a bit, yes.
You played against girls.
Jackie Horgan knocked me out of the park one day with my small hurley as well. Yeah, absolutely. I remember that. I thought I was going to score a goal, but you know how foolish I was. Before I even got to swing it, I was thrown to the ground. Listen guys, you're giving us great entertainment at the moment, and certainly look, I would hope more and more people get out and support you. The hurlers have finished. I mean, the camogie can take the light. Girls, thanks very much for all you've done, and look, fingers crossed. And you know what, it would be lovely to see in Croke Park, but look, it's amazing to think that you're back in the quarter-final already after 3 games, and you know, hopefully there's a step or 2 more in you as well, and keep up the good work, and best wishes to the team as well, and thank you for joining us this evening, and we'll take a break.
Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry, brought to you in association with Meadowlands Hotel Tralee. Family run and supporting local. Meadowlandshotel.com.
Now, what a weekend of GAA football action just passed. I suppose 4 big qualifiers producing, I suppose, some shocks. I suppose the Clare result goes down as a shock maybe, and some great football, of course. And then, of course, the big draw was made this morning, 8:30. I think the whole of Kerry were listening to a different radio station. But anyway, as soon as that was over, they were back with us on Radio Kerry. Now, we're on to discuss that and maybe a little bit more. It's a good friend of the show, Conor McKenna, and he'll throw a kind of a neutral's eye on the action. Conor, before we get chatting about that quarter-final draw that everybody is running around Kerry talking about, Mayo and Kerry and the whole lot, those qualifiers at the weekend, and we'll just take a brief look at them. Armagh defeating Donegal. Are we finally seeing another Ulster side with a bit of momentum that could say, yeah, you know, we need to keep an eye on Armagh?
Yeah, well, I was actually in Clonus yesterday at the game, and Armagh were very, very impressive. They were by far the better team. They looked like to be on a totally different level of football than their Donegal counterparts. I was actually in Ballybofey for the first meeting of the teams in the Ulster Championship in Donegal. The game was completely turned on its head. Donegal were far the better team that day. Armagh were naive that day. They were poor yesterday. Armagh were very, very good. And from the word go, with the goal by Rory Grugan after the ball from Marine O'Neill, it was really Armagh. Now, Donegal did turn it around, but like Armagh went from being 4 or 5 points down to being 11 points up heading into injury time. But that's a 16-point turnaround. So, look, I thought Donegal were very, very poor, I have to say. And I thought that they were just flat. They died a death. And I just think Donegal, look, I think a change is probably needed there. I think everyone is probably saying a change there would be for the best. And, look, it was just a very, very poor day for Donegal yesterday.
Yeah, certainly it was a difficult game for a lot of Donegal supporters. I suppose Armagh on the rise. Clare defeating Roscommon. I mean, down here we would always kind of say we have great respect for Clare. A lot of people would kind of say that bit of tongue in cheek, but we know how good Clare are within Munster. Clare defeating Roscommon, was it as big a scalp, or was the Colm Collins magic working?
Well, I think to be fair to Clare, they played Roscommon in Dr. Hyde Park in the league, and it was a draw, and Clare probably could have won that game. So it probably wasn't a miracle. I think Roscommon would have been favourites. And look, I suppose all in all, Roscommon probably should have won the game. They were ahead in injury time. The game was home and hose. They were probably half thinking, the fans, about coming back to Croke Park in 2 weeks, and all of a sudden, bang, it's over. And I think Roscommon suffered a similar fate in the qualifier against Fermanagh in 2015, if I recall, as well. But Clare gave Roscommon a bit of a scutcheon in the qualifiers in 2016, and they did the same. It was a smash and grab yesterday. But I think, unfortunately for Clare, it's probably as far as they're going to go. I don't see them progressing much further, to be honest.
God, all the Clare listeners have turned off Connor, so we'll be careful. We'll talk about the quarter-final yet. Our other neighbours, of course, Cork, they defeated our other neighbours, Limerick, of course. They did enough to defeat Limerick, but the black card, I suppose, midway through the second half, it certainly had a big bearing, did it?
Yeah, well, I think the Cork listeners might be tuning out as well, but yeah, it probably did have a big bearing on the game. I think Limerick were very, very poor against Kerry in the Munster final, but they redeemed it, didn't have a lot of justice yesterday. And bear in mind, Limerick did beat Clare in Gaelic grounds in Munster as well. But the one game I saw, that was in Clone yesterday, so I didn't get to see that Cork Limerick game, but I saw the other games. But just judging by all reports, Cork, they survived the potential banana skin, and I suppose, look, it was probably a good way for the season. The season now for Cork, they had 4 wins in the last 5 games, including, and the one game they lost was a very spirited performance against Kerry and Porky Rin. So all in all, it's a lot to be Cork to be positive for, and along with Limerick, I'd say both teams won't be too disheartened after yesterday at all, to be honest.
Cork are certainly there, of course. Finally, a team that for long stages didn't look like they were going to be in the quarter-final draw at all, Mayo. They left it late. Will Kildare feel they left it behind?
Kildare definitely would feel they left it behind, Donal. I think that was probably Mayo's worst championship performance maybe since losing in Newbridge in 2018. I thought Mayo were very, very poor. For 50 minutes of the game, Mayo were terrible. Like, they really were outclassed. Kildare were by far the better team. And I just think Daniel Flynn's goal chance was such a key turning point, because if that ball had either been popped right, there was a man on goal, or if it had been put over the bar, Kildare were 6 points up. And that save by the goalkeeper seemed to give Mayo completely new momentum. And from that point onwards, Mayo were by far the better team. And I think Mayo, look, if you ask me, are Mayo a better team than Kildare? Yes. Was I impressed with Mayo? Absolutely not. And I think that, I suppose we're getting on to the quarter-final draw now, but I think Kerry fans would be happy to say, I think that could be the end of Mayo's season in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, the draw, of course, it was made this morning. It's amazing. There was so much fun on Twitter last night. Everybody kind of predicting who would be there before the draw was made at all. And of course, because there was so many kind of permutations that narrowed down the draw, I suppose the chances of predicting it. But certainly yesterday, I was saying, God, we're going to get Mayo. I just have it. I have a feeling we're going to get Mayo. We're going to get Mayo. It's going to be a repeat of the league final. We're going to have poor old Patrick Dohora again and David Clifford, and it's all going to come back again. How pleased, from an outside view, do you think Kerry are with this draw?
I'd say Jack O'Connor is sitting there, and I'd say he's absolutely delighted. I think it's a perfect draw for Kerry to get, because Mayo are a hard men, a hard team. They're hard hitting. They'll really go at teams. They fear nobody, and it'll be a perfect test for Kerry. And Kerry will still win the game. I'd say Kerry will win it with a bit to spare, to be honest with you. I think it's a brilliant draw for Kerry to get at the moment. It shows Kerry. It'll teach Kerry it'll show what level this team is at. The talk is the team is untested in Munster, that they didn't get a proper test. Probably a bit disrespectful to the Munster counties, to be fair, because there's 3 of them in the last 8. Right. But I think that Mayo will be a perfect test for Kerry. And a good thing for Kerry is Mayo's style, out of all the 8 teams left in the championship, with the exception of Kerry, Mayo are probably the most similar team to Dublin, and Kerry need to test a team testing them like Dublin, or more than likely Dublin, with no disrespect for Cork, are going to test them in a semi-final if they win. Mayo have been there for years, done it, but Mayo will not fear Kerry at all. They don't fear teams, Mayo, and they'll probably press up on the kick-outs, on Shane Ryan's kick-out, similar to probably the way Dublin will. So I think it's a perfect game for Kerry, and it's one that they've got a great chance of winning.
Of course, on the other side of that draw, of course, it's the winners of Dublin and Cork. Of course, Cork did beat Dublin in the All-Ireland semi-final in 2010, if you to go back. But I mean, on form, although some people did tell me today it was a great draw for 2 Division 2 teams to be playing each other, a bit tongue-in-cheek, I suppose. Dublin are on a different track, though, surely.
Yeah, well, I think to be fair to Cork, they played very, very well against Kerry, and it was only after the Cork player went off injured in the last 20 minutes that Kerry really pulled away. So Cork did take a somewhat moral victory. Now, Roy Keane was in attendance that game. He doesn't do moral victories, but Cork will take some sort of moral victory from that game against Kerry. And if Cork can play like that, they won't beat Dublin, but they could frustrate Dublin. And I think Cork don't play with any fear. It's one thing about Cork as a county is they don't really fear anyone, especially in football, along with football and hurling. But so Cork, I think that they'll get stuck into it. I don't think it'll be as big a defeat as people are thinking, but I don't see any scenario where Dublin aren't in the last four either.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Armagh, they're heading to Croke Park. They've beaten Tyrone, they've beaten Donegal. Galway, a team that they certainly have a chance of beating?
Yeah, but see, I'd say now again, a bit like Jack O'Connor, I'd say Paul Joyce is sitting in the long grass and he's probably loving this, because Galway, there's absolutely no talk about Galway at all at the moment. Like, it's all the hype is going to be on Armagh. And Galway are a county, traditionally they are a team that can come from nowhere to win All Ireland. I think 98 is probably one that springs to mind quickest with that. But Galway now are a very, very well balanced team. Paul Conroy's in the form of his life. Shane Walsh has hit form. They've got a few players around it. And Galway, like, again, Armagh is not a team. Now, there was a 66.6% chance that Galway were going to draw one of Clare and Cork. So I'd say while they would have been happier to draw one of those two counties, but Armagh was a very 50-50 game, and it's two teams that play very attractive football. And I suppose after all the negative press that came after the Ulster final, I suppose the football championship, the qualifiers were very, very good, and I think we have a few more very, very open games promised in the next round too.
Of course, the last game to guess when you were on was back in January. Out of the blue, you said tip Derry for the All Ireland. They're in the final eight. They've certainly kind of got through on their merits. They play Clare now. Clare will be used to playing Derry. I presume they're in the same division for a while, and they would have probably been following each other around. Derry possibly a small bit ahead.
Yeah, well, I think Derry played Clare this year in the league, and they won quite comfortably down in Ennis. Now, this is probably the draw both counties wanted. I'd say if you asked Derry to pick one of the four teams they wanted to play, they probably would have chosen Clare. And I'd say if you asked Clare which of the four provincial finalists they would want to pick, they probably would have chosen Derry. Like, so it's probably both teams have got the draw they wanted. Now, I think after beating three Division 1 teams and winning an Ulster title, I think Derry would be a very, very disappointing way to the season if they lost to Clare, to be honest with you. Now, that's not being disrespectful to Clare. I think Colin Collins is a brilliant manager, and he's done a super job in Clare over 9 seasons, and I think this is probably a fair reflection. I think that was their first win in Croke Park for nearly 100 years, Clare, at the weekend against Roscommon. So I think Derry are going to win that game, and they're probably just about a level or two levels above Clare at the moment, and I'd be surprised if Derry aren't in the semi-final.
Yeah. So something that was surprising, of course, it got lost in the ether. I mean, everybody talks about, in general, how poor the football in the Munster Championship is, and how one-sided it is, and how lopsided it is, and Ulster is great and it's a dogfight and fellas have to climb over each other to get on to the next round. 3 of the last 8 teams standing are Munster Championship teams. That's half the teams in Munster. Is that just a bit of a fluke that it just happened, or I mean they're all standing there on merit?
Yeah, that's probably a good question. I suppose it's probably a bit of both is the answer to that. I think probably Cork a lot of the time are a much better team than they get credit for. People kind of sneer at Cork football, but they're not that bad, and they're capable of causing a scalp. Like their last, well, with the exception of Tyrone, they were like themselves in Tyrone. Kerry have only lost 4 matches in the last 3 seasons, and one of them has been against Cork, 3 against Tyrone. That's between league champions. So I think it's great for Kerry that Tyrone have gone. But just getting back to the point, Cork probably aren't anywhere near as bad as people think. And I'd say Clare, Limerick, Clare probably, like, are Clare top 18? There's a case that Clare could be a Division 1 team. They're probably a top 10 team anyway. So no, I don't think it's probably Munster football is as bad as people make out at all, to be honest.
Something that is fairly bad, I suppose it's that as teams get eliminated from championships and managers change and the whole lot. The case of Andy McEntee of Meath, I mean, he kind of lifted the lead, I suppose, maybe on the pressure of inter-county managers there in a couple of interviews there lately about fellas writing to him and fairly abusive. And I remember Eamon Fitzmaurice the same when he was coming to the end of his term here in Kerry. Fellas were sending him letters and borderline abuse, I suppose, more than anything else. And maybe sometimes people do cross the line, and I suppose with social media, everybody has an opinion and the whole lot. And again, even last night with Declan Bonner, I mean, I had a look through Twitter, and my God, I mean, the amount of abuse heading his way for a performance for the Donegal team. Are we getting to a stage, Conor, where we really have inherited that kind of English Premiership manager under pressure, where everybody seems to have an opinion and they're nearly always borderline hateful?
Yeah, well, I think that's a very good point. I think Andy McEntee and Declan Bonner are probably in similar situations in the sense that they'd both be people who'd be from the county and would have given savage service to the county at probably as players and management levels, you know, in the type of way. So I think that it is quite nasty, to be fair. And Declan Bonner has done 5 years in Donegal. The first 2 years were very, very successful. They won 2 Ulster Championships. They could have got to the All-Ireland semi-final. They could have won a third. And ever since that final defeat to Cavan, it's been very stagnant. But I suppose the managers, it is shocking because, like, a lot of those lads, it's like running a company, a full-time job. Like, there's a savage level of commitment required to be an inter-county manager. You know, and it's not a rewarding job at all. I think Paddy O'Shea, I think he was probably the first person in Kerry who opened it, how hard it was a job in Eamon Fitzmaurice, then probably said it in 2018, I think it was 15 years later, how tough a job it is. But I suppose, look, it's probably, without probably the right thing to say, it's probably the nature of the job that they're expected for criticism, but I think an awful lot of it is completely over the top and very, very personal and nasty, you know.
Absolutely. Well, look, Conor, thanks for joining us this evening. We'll let you go. Thanks for the recap. It's great that we have a guy that hasn't basically seen every team that's left in the championship. Conor, you might join us again maybe in a couple of weeks later when we get to the All-Ireland final, or some 2 teams will be in the All-Ireland final, and we might have a quick discussion on that. But for this evening, thanks very much, Conor.
Look forward to it, Donald. Thanks very much for having me on.
No bother. Now, a couple of comments in. Of course, a huge shout out to Christy O'Connell, Carsavine, who celebrated his 70th birthday yesterday. Christy's a brilliant person and a brilliant GAA man from St Mary's to South Kerry to Kerry and beyond. And that's from all his dear friends, James King and family, Main Street, Carsavine, of course, James King himself, of course, a big St Mary's man, and I suppose it is on the 1 year anniversary as well, of course, of the late Judy Murphy as well. Thoughts to him as well tonight. Now, hi, to all, Kerry must bring their shooting boots as Mayo will be looking for revenge. Hope the Kerry boys play well and help one another running off the shoulder. Their kick passing will have to be top notch, and that's from Eileen in Tralee. Hi Donald, great to see Kerry Camogie teams, ladies football and Kerry minors get the wins against very tough opposition. The Kerry hurlers gave it all against Wexford and have given us a great year. Mayo a very dangerous draw for Kerry as they battle hard and have momentum and capable of beating any team on their day. But if Kerry play well, they should win. The lack of competitive games and a long break is a worry, and that's from Charles there. And then the final comment in at the moment is congratulations to the Kerry senior ladies, the minors as well, and the management, and continued good luck to the local club here in Tuasis. And that comes from Margaret and Dermot, Margaret Ann even, sorry, and Dermot down there in Tuasis. Great supporters of Terrace Talk, and they listen to us every Monday evening, as hopefully a lot more of you do as well. Get those comments into us on 066 712 3666. After the break, we will be talking about the great Jillian O'Sullivan as she features in our final Women in Sports documentary. Jillian is a fantastic race walker, and of course a person that has led the way for a lot of people to enter that sport as well. And then at 7:30 we'll be catching up with Sean O'Sullivan, and we'll be talking about the Dylan Crowley tournament, and that's certainly something well worth a listen to. And later on, of course, we'll be talking to Tadhg Coakley as well about his book. But for now, we'll take a break.
Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry, brought to you in association with Meadowlands Hotel Tralee. Family run and supporting local. Meadowlandshotel.com.
Now you're very welcome back to Terrace Talk. Donald Barry here with you. An email just after dropping in from our good friend down there in Skibbereen, Michael Bruston, I suppose a big Cork fan, I suppose, and maybe he's a big Kerry fan. We'll have to ask him one of these days. But anyway, he always raises quite a good few comments, of course. Good evening, Donald. I would like to congratulate the Kerry minor footballers on laying the Tyrone bogey that have dogged Kerry football in all grades for years. It was a poor game, but winning is all that matters. And then the second point is, if the GAA headquarters in Croke Park have any respect for Kerry supporters, the upcoming game against Mayo should be played in the Limerick Gaelic grounds. No accommodation in Dublin, and the cost of travelling to the day, which will be a lot more expensive before the day of the match, it would mean a decent support of our footballers, which is very important. This is my own personal opinion. What do you and the other listeners think? As usual, the Kerry County Board will genuflect to whatever Croke Park headquarters will decide, like Parky Ring decision some weeks ago. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, Michael, because I did get a couple of text messages there today about the game, first of all, in Croke Park as well. 4 o'clock, though, was the issue on a Sunday evening. It's going to be late, isn't it? I mean, for Kerry fans. And then if you do a quick search of booking.com in and around the Dublin area, you're not going to get, believe it or not, within a 4 mile radius of Dublin's Croke Park, you're not going to get a hotel for for cheaper than €385. And the only person I know in this studio that can afford that is Ivan Hurley. So I don't know whether he's going up at 4 o'clock with €385. And that €385 will only get 2 people to stay in it. That, the ticket, and the fact that people have to pay, is it €201 or €205 now at the moment for diesel. That's creeping up. So yeah, Michael, very fair points. I suppose, look, at the end of the day, they're probably trying to get as many games into Croke Park and build it up. But even the last couple of games that were played in Croke Park, they certainly didn't sell out, and you know, it didn't really look great. But hopefully, of course, it's going to be a big double header, and people will turn up and support. But again, those Michael's comments, if you have any views on that, get them into us, and we'll certainly be happy to talk about them. Now, our next episode of Women in Sport, it's Gillian O'Sullivan. We reflect on the career of the race walker Jillian O'Sullivan, one of Ireland's most successful athletes, and Gillian, of course, wrote herself into the history books at the Sydney Olympics when she became the first female Olympian from Kerry. Have a listen to this.
This documentary was produced by Connie Broderick and Joe McGill. It was funded by the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland with the television licence fee.
Looks more difficult, but I suppose you can equate it really to kind of marathon running, do you know? It's like, I suppose it's half marathon distance, so that's, you know, there's not too many, it's that kind of pain, like in terms of just having to last through it, like, but it's, the technique isn't, it doesn't hurt, you know what I mean? It looks like it's painful, that side of things, but that's not, it's more just a physical effort.
Kerry is a county whose sporting sons are revered and celebrated, their stories spoken of and their names etched forever in local folklore. But what about the daughters of the county? The women whose sporting achievements matched and in cases exceeded their male counterparts. Their names are less well known, their stories even more so. In this series, Kerry Women in Sport, we travel the length and breadth of the county to meet a variety of women celebrating their stories as Kerry's influential women in sport. In this episode of Kerry Women in Sport, we reflect on the career of Kerry's first female Olympian, Gillian O'Sullivan. One of Ireland's most successful athletes, the Killarney native represented Ireland at European, World and Olympic Games in the 20-kilometre race walk.
I just genuinely took a fancy to athletics as a sport. I would have gone up to my own local club, which was Balmuckris in Killarney, when I suppose we were brought up there just as kids. I have 3 older brothers and a younger sister, and we would all have been brought up there. Everybody kind of did it or tried it. I suppose it was a friendly, kind of all-inclusive kind of an atmosphere to it. I guess as well, I suppose at the time there was no football or anything for girls at that stage. You know, it's come on so much. You know, I might have nieces that would play now, but that just wasn't a thing in the kind of early 80s. The community games was kind of the main thing for the summer, and you got to go, you know, you went to Tralee and you ran your race, and sure, more often than not you didn't even get out of the heat, but it was kind of community, it was fun based, it was, you know, there wasn't great emphasis on succeeding, there was more emphasis on participation, which was, I think, was fantastic, you know, and that was nice. And I suppose athletics was kind of a sport that everyone could find something that they could try, and it had a good range of kind of events, I suppose, and that's what drew me to it initially. But I would have just tried all different events, like being 8 or 10 or whatever. And then I suppose I just tried the race walking under 13 at the time, and in my own local club, and then went on to win it in Tralee or in the county championships and to Mosley then. And I suppose I found kind of maybe my niche now. At that stage, I suppose I was more stamina based as opposed to speed. So that would have been an indication maybe of where I was to go. It wasn't that I was instantly good, but I was instantly better than I was at the other events, and it just came easier to me, and like I was able to do it. And I suppose when with success, then you're kind of going to be encouraged and you're going to want to do more. And then when I went into secondary school, I kind of got a proper coach by the time I was 15. And suddenly there was other people doing this as well, and he was talking about kind of going internationally to different competitions. And you know, I would have started off with World Juniors in 94 or something, and I was the tail end of the field there, and then Europeans, you know, I was only medium. And as it went on, I suppose I was getting better. You shift your goals then, you know, it's all about kind of maybe making a championship at start, and then it's like, you know, having maybe setting a good time for yourself and kind of doing your own race, if you know what I mean, and just getting a good result that you're happy with. It mightn't look fantastic on the end results. And then I suppose as I was getting on in terms of like World Student Games and doing a little bit better and the times were starting to come, you know, it was very much kind of a gradual step-by-step improvement, I suppose, really.
At the age of 18, Jillian was already getting a taste of international action as she represented Ireland in the 5,000 metre event at the 1994 World Junior Championships in Lisbon, Portugal.
I went to the World Juniors in Portugal, so that was, I can still remember that. Yeah, it was probably the first time I had been to France, maybe on a school tour or something like that, but other than that I hadn't been outside France or England, so that was a big deal. And junior competitions are so important because in our event you were always like afraid of being DQ'd, and that was something that's always there as well. And just simple things can go wrong. There's so much to just be on the race, so there's like the travel element of things and just all the little things that you pick up along the way. Like, you know, my coach would have instilled in me always have your racing gear and your runners and maybe some training gear in a bag that you bring on the plane, because bags go astray and you mightn't get your bag for 2 days and you have no training gear, and what if your competition was on, and those small little things, that side of things. And then just coping with like stuff that you just don't know will happen. Like I remember the European Juniors were on the following year in 95, and it was on in Hungary, and I remember going there, and the water that they had like there was like mineral water, or else it was like fizzy, and those kind of things, like you can't control that sort of stuff, and it's just like, what do you do then? And you have to kind of be resourceful and whatever else, and you just have to learn how to cope with all those things then and kind of make the right choices, and that's, you have to learn the hard way in some ways, you know. But so all that international competition, like, it really does make a difference, and even kind of getting your timing right for your warm up and your stretching and how close to the event you can eat, and that's, I won't say it's trial and error, but you know, there is an awful lot of like, you could make a mistake 3 or 4 times, you know, and even as an experienced athlete you could still make a mistake, but you're less likely to, and just knowing what kind of suits you in terms of like who you want to be around coming up to the race. Like I was quiet, and I didn't want to be kind of talking nonsense to anyone, so I would just go, like, manage myself that way. So that side of things, I think that's, again, you just have to kind of find your way, and it's just a way of handling your own, I suppose, nervous energy as well then, to how you can keep yourself calm and collected and whatever else.
Over the next number of years, Jillian would further her development by competing in race walking events ranging from 3 to 5, 10 and 20 kilometres. By the time the Sydney Olympic Games of 2000 arrived, Jillian was an established athlete on the international circuit.
Tonight, we welcome the world's greatest athletes and their supporters to Sydney, Australia.
I was thrilled with my performance, you know, and just, I suppose, the figure of being in the top 10 was always fantastic as well. So no, I was thrilled with finishing 10th, because I was aiming to be maybe in, like, to do a good time and to maybe finish in the top 15 maybe, and so being 10th was a big bonus. It was super, like, you know, I was delighted to be in that, you know, that higher placing. I suppose looking back on it now, like, sure, I'd be more proud of it now than I was at the time, because when I went to Sydney I thought, like, oh sure, like, I'll be going to the next one and the next one after that, and it just didn't happen that way for me. But yeah, like, it's like, I suppose when the Olympics are on there now in Tokyo, like, you'd be looking at it going, Jesus, you know, it's like it's kind of surreal, I suppose, watching it, thinking that, like, you also were, you know, part of that, and you don't come across meeting too many Olympians, and I think, you know, not everybody realises, like, how difficult it actually is to even get there, you know, to even qualify, what training has to be done for it. And not that you want just getting to the Olympics as an achievement of itself, but it really is, like, there's, you know, nobody that gets the Olympics in a lucky way, you know, it is through hard work and dedication and whatever else. So it's nice to be part of that club.
Ireland.
The opening ceremony was fantastic, and the closing ceremony, they were brilliant. And also, I think there was one, like, golden night of athletics when Sonia won her medal, and there was loads of events, loads of finals on that night. I don't know, was there 6 or 7 finals, and they were all like Cathy Freeman they were all on the same night. And Michael Johnson won his medal as well, and I think Jonathan Edwards won his, and it was just like exciting event after exciting event. So I suppose that's a standout kind of night.
And of course the great Jillian O'Sullivan talking about her experiences at the Olympics and really getting into the whole name dropping. You can hear some more of those fantastic names and her experiences after the break.
Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry, brought to you in association with Meadowlands Hotel Tralee. Family run and supporting local. Meadowlandshotel.com.
Now you're listening to Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry. Donald Barry here, and of course we bring you all the latest news as quick as we have it. The under-21 draw just made over in Austin Stack Park there in the Pavilion, and listen up, there's some really tasty ones. It's the 2019, of course, was the last time this was played. East Kerry won it to beat Field Rangers in the final that evening. Now the draw, South Kerry, they've got a bye, they're into round 2. East Kerry, they've also got a bye, so they're also into round 2. And now we get going. Austin Stacks versus Rathmore. Kieran Rahilly's will play Kilmare District. North Kerry, joined together, versus West Kerry. St. Kieran's will play Mid Kerry. St. Brendan's will play Lawn Rangers. And a nice Kerry derby. Gneeveguilla will take on Dr. Crokes. Now, part 2 of of Women in Sport, Gillian O'Sullivan.
Of all the athletics disciplines, race walking is the least glamorous, yet among the most arduous. The training for a race walker is similar to that of a distance runner, but with much more emphasis on the technical skill component. Whether it is your first race walk or your 100th, it's a mental battle as well as a physical battle.
You know, it obviously takes practice and to actually kind of not lose your focus and stuff like that, but we used to kind of break it down into kind of, I suppose, quarters in terms of the first 5Ks just settling in. Then it starts to get a little bit harder, and to keep your pacing and keep your speed up and whatever, in terms of getting to a 10K. And then the hardest part then is like 12 to maybe 15, 16. That's really tough, because you can get tired, and you can kind of, depending on where you're at in the field and whatever like that, and it's just really kind of, I suppose, just digging in and just staying with the pack, or just staying your own pace as well, so that you can climb up through the field as well. And then the last kind of 3K or 4K is just hang on in there, like, for, you know, just keep going and kind of. But yeah, I wouldn't do it now. Like I wouldn't. Sure, I can't run as fast as I used to walk now, so I couldn't put myself through the pain of it now. I really genuinely look back on it now going, how did I do it? You can feel everything, I suppose, all the way through, but it's very mental then at the end. You kind of get better at mentally handling it as opposed to physically handling it, you know. It's always physically hard. But I guess you can kind of, I suppose, experience then the more that you do, the more that you know that the physical part that will end when you've crossed the line, like. So there's only kind of, you know, it's like hanging on there for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it is. I remember Robert Heffernan, and like we'd be joking like before it, are you ready for the battle? Like, are you ready for the war? I remember at the start of the 20K at the World Championships, like, sure, like if you could turn on your heels and go way home, like, it'd be much easier. Like it is like you'd nearly kind of, God, oh, Jesus Christ, because you know it's going to be so painful. But you know, if you can get the best out of yourself, then sure, I suppose that's because it's so hard, then that gives the extreme high after.
In 2002, Jillian broke the world record for the women's 5-kilometre race walk at the National Athletics Championship in Dublin. The Killarney native took 11 seconds off the existing time, coming home in 20 minutes and 2 seconds. However, she saved her most impressive performance of her career for Paris just over 12 months later, when she crossed the finish line to take the silver medal for Ireland at the 2003 World Athletics Championships in the women's 20-kilometre race walk. With another national record, Jillian became the first Irish athlete to win a medal in the walk at an athletics championship.
Well, like, the silver medal is the highlight, obviously. That was just, you know, it was culmination of years of work and training and dedication and everything else, and it was just a great day. Everything worked, everything went, and I had worked hard, and I had been, you know, it was possible for me to win a medal, but it's always like getting it is always it's a different story, actually, kind of, you know, you have to cross the line and be there as well. Like, I mean, I was 27 when I won the medal, and medal is like 15 years making. Do you know what I mean? Like it takes a long time and a lot of commitment. So it's just actually great, you know, to even get a medal. There's lots of athletes that just don't get what, I won't say what they deserve, but you know, another championship they might have got one, and it's like they don't get their just reward, if you know what I mean, for whatever reason. It just might be the timing might be off, or they got injured in a year that they could have won, and that kind of stuff. So to have it down on paper, I think it's always nice to have. It's just like, it's a pure high, like it really is, you know. You'll never beat that kind of feeling. It's just like everything comes together and the perfect day, you know, and everything goes right, and there you are then. It's like stuff of dreams, I suppose, really, to actually get on the podium and get the medal and see the flag going up and stuff like that. That's fantastic.
In 2007, Gillian announced her retirement from competitive athletics. Aged 30, she should have been looking forward to the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing. However, a combination of injury, illness and the realisation she was unlikely to regain her old form brought a premature end to her career.
I didn't want to retire. I had done so well, you know, in 2003, and then 2004 then the Olympics came around, and I was injured. So I went to Athens. I went to training camp. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. It was my left side was a problem, and it had been a problem kind of all year, really. Very problematic. And then my right hamstring, I actually pulled that then in training. It was just all wrong. So that was really tough. And then I came back from that and kind of thought, let's get this injury sorted and we'll get back on track again. And I might have to miss 2005, but I'll get back for 2006, 7 and 8, you know. And it just dragged on and on. I never got back fully. I kind of got back a small bit in towards the end of 2006, 7, but the problem was still there. And this was kind of start of 2007, and the cycle comes around very quickly, and I knew I was nowhere near I needed to be, and I couldn't face going into Beijing then with scraping and maybe getting there, but that was going to be it. And I don't think there was any solving in the injury that I had. It was a lower back. It was my sacroiliac joint, which was kind of it was all the rotation. So it was a very difficult decision. I didn't want to retire. I was kind of forced. Initially, I was a bit bitter, I think, maybe when I finished first. So I couldn't hardly, I didn't, not that I wanted to turn my back on it, but I needed to get away from it for a while. And it sounds weird, but you actually miss the hard work and training, because that's just all you're used to, and you miss that kind of sense of achievement and putting in a hard week's work or something, Part of yourself is caught up with it as well. It's your sense of identity, and it takes a while then to kind of no, I actually have to kind of move on and kind of go on to other things. So you kind of nearly have to reinvent yourself a little bit. At that stage then I suppose I had started my own business in terms of the personal training, so that kind of helped. I could throw myself into that, but found the Olympics in Beijing, I couldn't really watch that. I felt I should have been still there and that kind of thing, I would have liked to have gone maybe to 2012, but look, that's the way it went. I was kind of injured and just never got back fully, but look, I never thought that I'd win and succeed as much as I did when I was a kid. So you kind of weigh it all up then when you're kind of reflecting back on it. I think athletics, to be fair, wasn't a bad event in terms of equality or the challenges to compete and to get there and to do all the training and everything else. So that's the same. That's still difficult and that's still a challenge and whatever else. But there's probably better access to coaching and that kind of side of things. I think athletics, to be fair, wasn't a bad event in terms of equality because, not when I was there anyway. Because they had every event even when I was there for women, as maybe the steeplechase wasn't there initially, but it is now. And the only other event was the 50k walk. So I don't know what the story is with that. I don't think that's going to be in the next Olympics anyway. But they were talking about bringing in maybe a 30k or something instead. So it's not the most unequal of sports, I would say. but I think in terms of when you're there and competing and kind of the respect that would other coaches and other athletes would have for each other, but I think the representation has improved for women in terms of in the media.
One of Ireland's finest ever athletes, Jillian had a hugely impressive career. From Lisbon to Sydney, Dublin to Paris, she has written herself into the history of Kerry and Ireland's sporting pages. Will always be remembered as Kerry's first female Olympian.
I suppose looking back on it, like, I mean, it was like a dream come true, really, you know, to be able to compete at that level. And no, like, you know, as I said, I put the hard work in and put all the time in and everything else into it. So it wasn't like it just happened. But I had a good team where my coach was my coach, like from the beginning, like to the end, and he was a great mentor, you know, and even in life, like, so it was great. You met fantastic people like that, and I suppose sport is like a metaphor for a lot of things in life, you know, as well, that there'll be ups and downs and there'll be obstacles and there'll be injuries and there'll be, you know, more bad times than good in a lot of ways, if you know what I mean. So just, I suppose, sticking at it and having a belief in yourself that you could finally get there then as well is important, and committing to it and, you know, believing in the training that you were doing, and I suppose athletics was, you know, it is very different. I mean, like, say when I was in college, it was very much like, you know, if I didn't do it, like, sure, I had nobody to answer to, you know, it was only yourself, like, so that end then is, you have to be very dedicated and single-minded to get to where you are, and I suppose that in itself then brings a confidence that and a belief that, like, you do this and you'll get the results then, and it stands you in various different things in life, you know, after, with lots of different things you might have to come to terms with, you know, that I think it kind of helps you to know that you'll just, you know, you'll get through it and you'll come out the other end then as well.
This documentary was produced by Connie Broderick and Joe McGill. It was funded by the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland with the television licence fee.
There you go, that was the great Gillian O'Sullivan, and after the break we'll be talking to the great Sean O'Sullivan. Yeah, Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry, and we bring it all to you as soon as it happens. Great result just in off the phone with Colin Murray. Who's Colin Murray? People will say, well, he's the manager of the Kerry Kennedy Cup team. Good news from Newell, they won 1-0, and who scored? Robbie Keane. Well, is it Robbie Keane or Robbie Keane? Well, it is Robert Keane from Camp. He's the guy that got the all-important goal, 1-0. Good win over South Tipperary, and they're up again at 12 o'clock tomorrow morning against Kilkenny, so no rest for them, but off to a flyer, and congratulations to the boys and Cullum as well, and the very best luck tomorrow. That's a great score, and as long as Robbie Keane can keep scoring, well, you know, who knows, we'll go all the way. Now, my next guest, delighted to have on the line Sean O'Sullivan, and of course Sean O'Sullivan is one of the men behind the Dylan Crowley tournament out there in Gneeveguilla, the under-11 tournament. It's a tournament that, I suppose with COVID, it's kind of held up for a while, but we're back in full light again, and delighted to have Sean on the line. Sean, before we talk about the tournament, maybe give people an idea of who Dylan Crowley was, and the great Dylan Crowley that is still very fresh in the memory for an awful lot of people out there.
Right, Dylan Crowley was born in 2003. Dylan was born, his parents was Christy Crowley and Eileen Crowley, Christy the referee, and I was his godfather. So I was a proud man to be asked to be his godfather, so we got on very well. So Dylan got sick in January 2011. Shortly after that, he was diagnosed with a brain tumour, and just at the age of 7.5 years, after having an operation and radiotherapy and chemotherapy, Dylan got the all clear again, and he went back playing football, and he played basketball, and he was very diligent in everything he did. But sadly, in 2013, the illness returned, and Dylan got his injured wings in August 2013. Mm-hmm. So in 2014, we made up our minds that Dylan's memory should live on, because he was a character who knew him, Donald. He was a very good man. So And 2014 we started, so it was a great success since, only for the 2 years of COVID.
And of course, the magic thing about the tournament, it's under 11. It's the age that Dylan was at that age, and he would have played, of course, at that age group. Unfortunately, it was his last age group playing. But you know, it's a lovely thing to remember him by. And of course, all the players coming through, they really are all Dylan Crowleys that are talking out the next day, aren't they?
Oh, they are, because when we meet all the young fellas, they look at the photographs of Dylan Crowley, and when they be saying that, see the picture of Dylan, like, then it do hit them that they should play football and they should enjoy themselves. They don't want to be, you know, memories. So they get a great kick, and I would say with the last 8 or 9 years there, for the 2 years, the youngsters have been very well behaved, good to play football and gets on with the job, and they're a credit to all their clubs and to their fathers and mothers. I must say it is a great memory to have.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful day. I was at one or two of the very early ones as well. The one thing that amazed me is that I won't say the small field out in Gneeveguilla, but it's amazing how many children you can pack in there under 11 playing football all over the place. And you know, there's great noise and there's great colour. And again, this year's competition is going to be no different. How many teams have you participating this year, Sean?
Well, I'll go through the setup of the things this year now. First of all, I'll just go a small rundown first on the referees. We have 9 referees. We have just your own man, Michael Morrissey, John O'Neill, the Welsh from Rathmore, Kerry Crowley, Donald Casey, Brendan Brosnan, Jimmy O'Shea, Brian Fleming, and we have who was that young man from Glencoe, O'Connell. So we have a lot of referees, and now we'll go through to the teams. In Division 1, we have Kilcommon, and we have Rathmore, and Scatterglynn for the first year that gone up to Division 1, and Spa. And between them all, I think in Division 1 it will be a very tight competition, but I think that is Kilcommon have a key man this year. They said there's a new goalie and he's kicking further than Keeley, I would think. So by the name of Dan Barry. So he is their main man, and Kilcommon should be up around there. I hear that he is very good in goal, and I saw him playing. Yeah. So that Division 1 would be very tight. In Division 2 you have Glenpless, Listry, Cordell and Fieries. So it could go anywhere. Cordell are strong, Listry are strong, Fieries, Glenpless, that would be bad in the competition. And I go down into Division 3, you have Curra, Legion, Kilgarvan and Gneeveguilla. You'll be saying, how come we say Curra, Legion and Gneeveguilla down there? But that's the way things goes. You have good teams and bad teams, and the competition in Division 3 will be every bit as strong as to be in 1 and 2.
Yeah. So they're all playing, Sean. I mean, I don't think any under 11, as long as they get their 3 or 4 games, they'll be out. One of the lovely things about it as well is the parade. Speak to us about the parade, because that's something you don't see that often in these tournaments.
Well, first of all, over the years, we have, this year our piper is Mike Dial. Of course, Mike Dial father is Mike Dial himself. You know, the Dial steeped in music and tradition. Only Mike left us from Gneeveguilla, and he went on over to Knocknagree, but we do bring back the piper. He's steeped in the tradition. And our other piper was Declan Buckley. He's from Gneeveguilla. His mother there is a great. She's very good. She do play music as well. So down the Declan had it from Breather. So they are the 2 pipers. So we'll have the first 3 amount of games. That will be, each team will be after 3 games, and around about 1/4, 1/2, we'll have the parade with the 240 youngsters going around the field, and led by the piper, Mike Dial. Mm-hmm. So we have.
You've plenty going on. You have sport and music. Something that struck me at the weekend was very funny how things come back to play in your mind. I was watching the Kerry Miners, of course, and that fantastic win over Tyrone. Kerry Miners now, of course, are under 17. Some of these guys played in that tournament, didn't they?
Well, I was going through a few of them last night in my head, and I'll just go through a few of them. You have Gary Callahan, you have Cian Foley and James Williams of Kilcommon. You have Dylan Roach, Gillian O Sullivan, Luke Crowley, John Kelleher, Jack O'Donoghue, Keane Lynch, Michal Dinhe, Rathmore, Fionn Murphy, Tadhg Coakley, Cathal Brashton of Curra, Paddy O'Leary, Gneeveguilla, Dylan Cannon of Friaries, and Murphy of Kilgarvan. And there's probably a few more. And the bulk of them were involved in these Kerry 5 in a row team. There's a lot of them after in the minors there with a few years that all have been playing in that competition as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing to think that one tournament, Dylan Crowley tournament under 11, and you can call out 15 or 20 odd players who have went on to play Kerry minor. It certainly shows the amount of talent out there in East Kerry. Of course, the clubs are from all around, mostly East Kerry. You were saying to me there when we were chatting yesterday, of course, that you get the odd few visitors from the other side of the board, but just maybe not this year.
Well, we always had Drumtarrett and Gneeveguilla because we had Lyre a few years and we had Mill Street a few years. But this year they had another tournament the same time. It was just tough luck. So hopefully they'll be back next year again. So we Gneeveguilla, Drumtarrett won a trophy 1 year. So going through the years of who won the trophies, Kilcommon, Glenfresca dominated a lot of the Division 1, but Scat again have won, Curra have won. We say, well, so Scat, Curra, I'd say Fieries have had the trophy every year after it. They're very cute around Fieries there, the way they can always steal a trophy.
They come to win.
And Gneeveguilla has not won a trophy yet, and Legion have not won a trophy. Kilgarvan has been close. So Spa had a very good team there 1 year, and they were very close as well. So I think Spa strong this year as well.
And of course, Sean, when you're watching this, I suppose, look, it's entry-level football in a sense for a lot of them. It's probably going to be their first competitive in those inverted comma words, but it's amazing how quickly they get to learn to play and how they can move the ball. I mean, I'm watching I suppose Kilcommon going out every Thursday night as every other person is watching their own team, but people will be in for a treat of some great football, close games, good action, and at this level it's great to watch it and great to enjoy it.
Well, I can tell you one thing, whoever with the last years or watch it anyway, and if they come here, they have seen the best value. Everything is free. There is coffees, teas, everything. There is no entry fee. It's all done in honour of Dinner's memory, so there is no money being made out of it or anything. But they can see the best football, and they can see fellas coming up along, and they would pick out fellas and fellas who think that wouldn't make it, and in a couple of years' time they'd be good. But we'll always pick out a lot of good footballers and everything. So that is well worth coming along. They can come and go away again and come back, and you're always welcome. And we have plenty parking there. Seamus O'Brien has put in parking for us, and the ladies' club under Elaine Kane has been. They have, they provide all the grub, and we have a chipper by the name of Batty. That's the only thing that if you want to treat, he does a meal for very little.
You have more lining up for food, Sean. Come here, Sean, we could talk for another 2 hours, but we'll have to move on. Sean, listen, the very best of luck with the tournament. It's great that you're keeping Dylan Crowley's name up there in lights. And I mean, look, everybody that has ever lost a child, it's a hard time. The community are a great community out there. I mean, you came around the family that time, I remember, in 2013. You were strong, and this is a good day. Any day you're going to have it. And look, the very best luck to you and all the family members out there as well on Saturday.
Yeah, just before I go down, could I say to my counterpart Sean O'Keefe, he has been a great help for everything over the years, and especially Stephen Crowley is chairman, his uncle of Gneeveguilla. That's all. Thank you.
Fair play to you. Sean, listen, thanks very much for joining us this evening. Up after the break, we talk to a Cork man about his new book.
Terrace Talk on Radio Kerry. Brought to you in association with Meadowlands Hotel Tralee. Family run and supporting local. Meadowlandshotel.com.
Now we're heading to the summertime, of course, and people are heading away on holidays and mad to get the sunshine, and they're packing their bags and the whole lot. But one of the things that a lot of people pack into their bags, of course, are a book, and a good book to read on a holiday. Now, my next guest has a very good book, and he's going to tell us all about it. The Game, A Journey into the Heart of Sport by Tadhg Coakley. Tadhg, delighted to have you on the line with us. The blurb said it's a multifaceted reflection on sport as part of a memoir outlining Tadhg Coakley's time as a player and fan of sport and how it shaped his life. Tadhg, sport really shapes people's lives in every sort of direction, and this book tells that story, does it?
It does, Donald, really, and people in Kerry will understand that more than any other county, and it's partly my experience in sport, but it's a universal book, really. I didn't play sport to the highest level, which is the most common thing in sports books. So even though I grew up in Mayo, my experiences could be the same as a young woman or man in Killarney or Tralee or Kenmare, and that's what I wanted to bring across in the book, the kind of universality of sport, really.
Mm-hmm. It's gas. I was looking at the book there, the cover. It's a stunning cover. I suppose usually when you go into a bookshop, I'll be honest with you, you look at the cover, and if the cover is appealing, you're going to open the book and have a look in it. And I certainly found this cover appealing. Is it of a young yourself on the cover? Because
it is. Yeah. It is on Banner Strand, actually, Donald, in 1974, a photo taken by my brother.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, the Banner Strand, of course, the connection with Kerry, obviously, and the whole lot. It's a fantastic looking book because I suppose it's about a young lad's life, and all of a sudden you're interested in it, and you're going to open it. What will people find in it when they do dig into the pages, Tadhg?
Well, they'll find it's a book of essays, but, there's the personal in there about my experiences with my family, with my father and mother and so on, which, a lot of people will relate to. But there's other issues about sport as well. I write about the kind of initiation to sport. At the moment, I really, a switch was flicked inside me at a hurling match in 1971 when I was 10. Mm-hmm. And that's going to happen, for example, in Sunday week. Now, you could imagine a child going to Kerry and Mayo in Croke Park, and it'll be her first time in Croke Park, let's say, with her father. Mm-hmm. And she'll always have that memory. She'll never forget it, and she'll always have that bond with her father as a result of going to that match, especially if Kerry win.
Mm-hmm. Growing up in Mayo, of course, I mean, look, it's a great sporting part of the world as well. What were your early introduction into sport? The local football team, was it Mayo, or did you play with a club outside it, or where did you play?
No, it was Mayo, and it was mostly hurling and soccer I played, but it's not really a book about those sports. Mm-hmm. And the game, actually, the title comes from a game that I played around my house. Okay. When I was a child, kicking a ball around the house, trying to kick it around the house in the least possible number of touches. And, everyone who reads the book says, I had a game when I was a child, and I used to do this and I do that. We all have those kind of memories. Mm-hmm. So that's what the book is about, really. And children especially feature strongly in the book. That's where we really become interested in sport, when we're children.
Yeah, and of course, children and sport, I suppose, if they like it, they get involved in it. And I suppose we're in a time now where people need to be a little bit more active than we have been for a long time. And look, I work in a school, and you see some of the characters inside there, they need a bit more activity in the nicest sense of the word. What has happened to us that we kind of turned our back as maybe a small bit in sport, and we've kind of gone to the video games, and we've gone to the couch, and we've gone to the potatoes and the whole lot. When did that shift happen on us?
Well, it's a real pity, really, because, one thing you won't learn on a bloody screen at home is how to network with people, how to make friends, how to communicate. You learn all those things through sport, from being down in the club or on the pitch, kicking the ball around. And you learn about your identity, where you're from, your community, and, you forge bonds through sport as a child that you'll have for the rest of your life, and you won't do that on a video game. I can guarantee you that.
No, absolutely. And of course, in the old days, like you said, you had to invent your games, kick the ball around the house, and it was amazing how inventful we were back in those days, I suppose. And they're not 100 years ago either. We're talking about maybe the 70s and the 80s and that kind of stuff. Tadhg, growing up in Mayo, who were your sporting heroes, and who were the people that were kind of, you were saying, yeah, I'd love to be like him, or I'd like to play that sport?
Well, the first one was George Best. I saw the European Cup final in 1968, and, he was so beautiful and so magical. And then, when I got older, it was people like Jimmy Barry Murphy, great Conor Cork, sports heroes. But, the children in Kerry will have their own heroes as well, women and men as well. There's plenty of them in men and women out there that we can we can identify with. And it was really one moment at a match when I was at 10. I saw Con Roach, a great Cork hurler, taking a sideline cut, and I was very close to the sideline. And that's one of the moments, definitely, when I heard the crowd roar when the ball, the sideline cut, went into the goal. I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to be part of this, to be part of something bigger than myself. And that's where I think the switch was flicked inside me, and it meant that sport was going to be part of my life for the rest of my life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Tadhg, I suppose there's good and not so good sides to sport as well. I suppose that's probably the story that can be told as well. It's a book of kind of short stories and essays knitted together. Is that more difficult to write in kind of your straightforward novel where you have your characters and off you go, or is this kind of more like knitted together kind of cleverly?
Well, it is difficult, Donald. First of all, because it's personal. It's much easier writing a novel, and I've written 2 novels about characters you make up. But, you know, I have to bear a little bit of my life and my soul in the book as well, and that's difficult. But you're dead right about the dark side of sport as well. I have 4 essays in the middle about the kind of dark side of sport, because, you know, the great emotions we feel in sport, sometimes they can spill into anger. So you'd go to a children's game, for example, and the next thing you'd see some idiot shouting and roaring at the children or the referee in the game. So we have to be careful about our emotions as well, and we have to, you know, treat girls as just as important as boys. And there's all these kind of issues about sports washing as well in sport at the moment. So we have to be careful about sport too. It's a very powerful force, but we have to use it for good, not for bad.
Absolutely. Finally, I suppose I can't let you off the line. I have a comment in already. They're fairly quick down here in Kerry. Can you ask the Cork man, how does he think they'll get on against Dublin?
I wouldn't be too confident, no. We had a great experience in 1983 when Dublin to Cork. It's a real pity that Dublin don't come to Cork, you know. I mean, I think the Dublin people would actually love it as well, but, you know, we'll give it a go, and we did well against Louth and Limerick, but, you know, it's probably a step too far, really. I'd fancy Kerry's chances against Mayo a bit more than our chances against Dublin, being realistic.
Yeah, you're going into the Disney fairy therapy now and selling under the counter, Tadhg. Tadhg, I suppose finally, and we'll wrap it up briefly. Where can I get the book, and where can I find it? In all good bookshops and Marion Press.
All good bookshops, absolutely. And if they don't have it, they'll order it for you. And I would prefer people to buy it in their local bookshops. They need all the support they can get, and there's plenty of good bookshops in Kerry. So support your local bookshop, whatever you do.
Well, I'm going on holidays in 3 weeks' time. I haven't told my producer yet, of course. He'll figure it out now when I'm not here, and I'll be getting the game, and I'll stick it in the book, in the bag, and we'll be reading this on over, hopefully, in sunnier climes, and we'll be back for the All-Ireland final. That looks like a good way to spend the summer, Tadhg. Tadhg, great to have you on the show this evening, and we'll certainly look forward to plenty more stories from you over the years. You're probably only starting at the moment, and as I said, I love that cover. It's a fantastic cover, and it kind of hits I suppose it hits a part of people's lives where you can say, yeah, look, that could be me. And of course, look, a Corkman putting a Kerry beach on the front of it, sure, that's always going to sell for you. Tadhg, thank you very much, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Donald. Really appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Not at all. That was Tadhg Coakley and his book there, The Game, A Journey into the Heart of Sport by Tadhg Coakley. And it's an amazing little book, really. I mean, he sets it all about little essays. There's a lovely little bit of writing in there as well. And I think, you know, people are going to find a bit about themselves in it, even though the names mightn't be their own names. But and then, of course, it's one of those rare books that, you know, there's an awful lot of true to life in it, and that's very, very important as well to be reading and looking at that. Now, the show tonight, of course, I want to thank all our guests, James McCarthy and Richard O'Foran. They were in earlier. Patrice and Michelle Costello joined us. Conor McKenna, of course, was on talking about the All-Ireland. The Women in Sport programme, again, of course, that was a fantastic programme. I mean, certainly you can check that back up again in our podcasts and the whole lot. I mean, there's 20 of them there as well. Fantastic shows to listen to. And of course, Gillian O'Sullivan, we wish you all the very, very best luck for the Dylan Crowley tournament, which is taking place in Gneeveguilla on Saturday. We'll do it all again next week. Don't